A Werewolf Shifter Romance Audiobook, written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. The air in Seer Anya's chamber. It had always tasted of pine resin and quiet magic. Tonight, though, it reeked of fear. Not hers. Not yet. This fear was ancient, sharper. It clung to the young alpha Ryker like the dust of battles yet unfought. He stood before her, barely a man. His shoulders already bowed, a crown violently thrust upon him by betrayal and blood. His father, his siblings, all gone. And in their place, a screaming silence. Ryker, just 19 cycles old, had learned the brutal lessons of loss. He'd carved him into a pragmatist, a leader who believed only in what he could control, what he could conquer. He'd built his walls high, cemented them with grief. And within them he harbored a silent, simmering terror of anything wild, anything unpredictable, anything that defied his iron will. This was the dark undercurrent beneath his stoic facade, the flaw Anya saw festering. Her eyes, cloudy with age and glimpses of destiny, focused on him. The whispers have begun, young alpha, not of the wind, but of the whisper that shakes the world. Ryker shifted, a flicker of impatience crossing his stern features. Prophecies were troublesome things, untidy. And what does this whisper portend? Anya. Another rival pack, another blight upon our lands. He wanted a tangible enemy, something he could strategize against. Crush. Anya closed her eyes, a shudder rippling through her frail frame. It speaks of salvation, Ryker, and of ruin. Her voice grew thin, like a thread stretched to breaking. If claimed in fear, silenced in pride, it will unleash the great unraveling upon us all. But if embraced in understanding, resonated with respect, it will be our salvation. Ryker's jaw tightened. Claimed in fear, silenced in pride. The words grated. His reign would be built on strength, on order. There was no room for abstract whispers, or unpredictable salvation in his vision for his fractured pack. He would not be swayed by vague omens. He would suppress any threat, mold any wildness into something useful. Control was the only path. The lingering scent of old fear, a phantom from his own trauma, seemed to deepen around him, unseen by any but Anya. Anya opened her eyes, her gaze piercing, desperate. You seek a weapon, Ryker, not a song. But the greatest strength lies not in command, but in harmony. You will hear her. You will feel her. Do not mistake fear for wisdom. He dismissed her words. Outwardly calm, inwardly seething. Harmony felt like weakness. Control was strength. He would find this whisper, and bind it. Harness it to his will, for the good of his pack. He would not allow the very source of their prophesied salvation to become their doom. Not under his watch. He walked away, the scent of his resolve a heavy, suffocating blanket. Hours later, Anya lay still, her last breath a whisper of her own, a final, despairing sigh. Her prophecy hung in the air, a sword of Damocles over the Blackwood pack, its fate resting on an alpha who chose to believe strength was born from fear, not from the wild, unpredictable song of a fated mate. The great unraveling stirred, just beyond the edges of the known world, waiting for its cue.
The sun warmed Tala's face. As she knelt by the willow-draped stream, her fingers gently stroked the ruffled feathers of a young robin. A soft, humming sound, like a bee buzzing on a summer's day, escaped her lips. And then the bird fluttered its wings, strong and sure. Before darting away, she smiled, a quiet joy blooming in her chest. Tala's of Willowbrook. She was different. She had always been different. Her voice wasn't just sounds. It was a feeling, a deep hum, a resonant thrum, right in her bones. It calmed. It healed. It sometimes even stirred the leaves on the trees, because she felt the world truly felt it, with every fiber of her being. Not only that, her scent was unlike any other in their small, peaceful pack. It smelled like wild moonflowers after a rainstorm. It smelled like ancient stone warmed by the sun, and it smelled like the first crackle of a lightning storm just before it broke. This unique fragrance, a scent of untapped, ethereal power, often made others pause. Maybe it was fate, but she yearned for understanding, a deep knowledge of what lay beneath her unusual gifts. She felt things, she heard things, and she knew she was meant for something more. Soon after, Elder Lyra appeared, her eyes, old and kind, seeing more than most. She held a dark, smooth river stone. For you, little songbird, Lyra whispered, her voice like rustling leaves. Tala took the stone. It felt cool. against her palm, and then a faint vibration began. A gentle hum that echoed the one in her own bones. It pulsed, a quiet counterpoint to the restless power Elder Lyra hinted at. When the world roars, your song must answer. Do not fear its depth. Lyra's words were a riddle, a heavy secret passed through generations. What's more, Tala sensed a quiet strength in those words, a destiny waiting to unfold. She clutched the stone, its subtle thrumming a connection to something vast and ancient. She knew a great roar was coming, and she wondered if her song would be enough. Her life had always been quiet. Now, she felt a subtle shift, a whisper of a path diverging, leading her toward a destiny she couldn't yet grasp.
The air vibrated with the raw metallic tang of blood and sweat. Ryker, a whirlwind of muscle and fury, moved through the skirmish. His claws were stained red, his snarl ripped through the chaos. Because these rogue wolves dared to cross his borders, he cornered one, a scraggly male whimpering on the ground. Ryker raised a paw ready to deliver the final crushing blow. This was how his pack survived. This was justice. And then it happened. A sound. Not a scream, not a cry, but a resonant, ancient note that tore through the battle. It was like bells chiming deep in the earth. The very air around him sang. The ground beneath his paws vibrated, a strange, beautiful thrum that went straight to his bones. The Ryker froze. The sound slammed into him, harder than any physical blow. His inner wolf, a beast usually chained by his iron will, erupted within his mind. Mate, it roared, a savage, possessive thunder that shook his very soul. In that blinding second, her true scent hit him. It overwhelmed his senses, sweet and wild like moonflowers, ancient stone in the first crackle of a lightning storm. It was an intoxicating call, a call that both terrified and enthralled him. Anya's prophecy blazed behind his eyes, the whisper that shakes the world. This was it. His mate. Fear and a raw possessive instinct he couldn't control warred within him. What's worse, the primal command to claim her felt stronger than his own thoughts. He couldn't fight it, he didn't want to. Before he could move, a guttural sound tore from his throat. It wasn't just a command, it was a promise. Stop. This conflict ends. His voice, deep and laced with primal authority, cut through the battle. And she is mine. The words were torn from his very soul, the alpha and the wolf claiming her. Even so, his mind screamed about control. It screamed about the danger she represented. He took a single powerful step toward her. Just like that, everything changed. Her world tilted. Her heart skipped, and she felt it clear as day. A shocking jolt, an unwilling, terrifying pull towards this fearsome alpha. His scent, deep forest earth, burning embers and the crisp bite of winter air, suddenly imprinted on her senses, a burning mark of the alpha who had just claimed her fate. What did this mean? Could this wild, untamed power truly be his salvation? He dragged his gaze from her stunned face to the shocked faces of his warriors. This was his claim. This was his destiny. And now the real fight had just begun. The battle died with his roar, leaving an eerie silence. Ryker stood, Tala's arm firmly in his grasp, her body stiff beside him. He could feel her pulse racing, her quiet tremor. His wolf exulted. Mine, mine, mine. Yet Ryker the alpha was terrified. He led her back to his camp, ignoring the stunned gazes of his pack. He felt their curiosity, their fear, but he had to show strength, because any sign of weakness could unravel everything. His hand, resting on the small of her back, felt possessive, not tender. He knew what Anya had said. He knew the prophecy, but his mind twisted her words. Control was the key. He had to tame this whisper. He had to contain it because letting it run wild felt like asking for the great unraveling. His fear, a bitter taste in his mouth, was a mask for his true feelings. He showered her with gifts, fine pelts, rich foods, rare herbs, but his attentiveness was a mask for his deeper fear. His touches were calculated. They were meant to stake his claim. They were meant to show everyone she was his, not to connect, not to cherish. "You're a Luna now," he told her, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You will stay within the den. You will not interfere with pack matters." Tala stood there, her eyes wide, like a trapped forest creature. Her own scent, moonflowers and lightning, was muted by her terror, barely a whisper on the air, yet it still made his wolf thrum. He noticed her flinch. He saw the way her gaze dropped, but he hardened his heart. This was for the good of the pack. This was for their survival. He couldn't risk the unknown. He couldn't risk her power, because he had seen what chaos could do. As a result, the seeds of ruin were sown. His possessiveness, born of fear, began to twist everything. He heard the hushed whispers of his warriors. He felt their confusion. But he ignored them. He had to be strong. He had to be in control. This was his path because he didn't know any other way. What followed was a coldness that settled between them. A silent, aching distance, and a true prophecy, the one about understanding and respect, seemed to drift further and further away, lost in the icy grip of his fear. Was this truly the salvation Anya spoke of, or just another path to ruin? Months passed. The coldness between Ryker and Tala turned into something bitter. His fear kept building up, twisting into open disdain. He couldn't stand her quiet presence because it felt like a silent challenge to his iron will. Then came the midwinter feast, a time of joy and togetherness. Ryker, however, turned it into a public display of her uselessness. "Look at Lunar," Tala announced, his voice carrying across the hushed hall. "While Lyra the warrior trains our pups to defend our borders, and Ella the hunter brings us vital game, what does our Luna offer? Useless songs." A ripple of uneasy silence spread through the hall. He saw her face, her cheeks burned. But Tale, though heartbroken, carried herself with quiet dignity. She didn't cry. She didn't lash out. She just looked at him with an immense sadness that pierced deeper than any claw. Her shame was clear. Yet inwardly Ryker was tormented. Each time he dismissed her, that unique scent, moonflowers, and lightning, wrapped around him like a phantom touch. His wolf howled in protest. An ache of longing so raw, so potent, that he brutally suppressed it. He found himself lingering where she'd been. He'd cursed the weakness. "What is wrong with me?" he'd growl to himself. He didn't know what scared him more, the thought of her power, or this unbearable yearning for her presence. That's why he fought it so hard. One time when a loose beam nearly fell in the great hall where Tala was quietly arranging winter herbs, his body moved on instinct. He moved like lightning. His body shielded hers before his mind even caught up. A snarl disproportionately fierce ripped from his throat, because danger to her felt like a direct threat to his core. He froze. He saw the shock in her eyes, and then he recoiled, his subsequent dismissal of her concern even colder, a desperate attempt to reinforce his crumbling walls. He told her to be more careful. He told her she was a distraction. Meanwhile, Tala's gentle hums, though not consciously directed, subtly eased pack tensions. An elderly Omega, Alara who remembered old lore, often left Tala a warm berry tea or a kind word in secret. Ryker noticed these subtle shifts, the pack's fleeting moments of calm when Tala was near. It infuriated him, a power he couldn't control, tied to the mate his wolf craved and his mind fiercely feared. He just couldn't understand it. What would happen if he truly let go?
The alpha's den felt like a gilded cage. Soft pelts covered the floor. Rich meats were brought to her. Yet Tala's heart ached because freedom was gone. She often sat by the den's entrance, watching the pack move about their day. They seemed to whisper when she came near. Their eyes held a mix of pity and fear. She wanted to help. She wanted to connect. But every time she tried, a guard would gently but firmly guide her back inside. And then the door would click shut. It felt like a trap. She spent her days humming softly to herself. A habit from Willowbrook, it was a low, comforting sound that vibrated deep in her bones. This hum was her only true comfort now. It seemed to make the air itself feel softer. Sometimes, when a pup cried nearby, her hum would get a little louder, a gentle melody meant to soothe. Soon after, the crying would stop. Tala didn't mean to do it. It just happened. She was like a quiet river, still flowing even when dammed. She wondered if anyone noticed. She wondered if anyone cared. More importantly, she felt the wolf in her, a quiet presence now. It stretched. It yearned for the open forest, but Tala knew she couldn't let it out. Not yet. Because the alpha had claimed her. She was his. And his rules were like iron. Her unique scent, wild moonflowers and lightning, felt muted here. Trapped beneath layers of dust and the heavy scent of Ryker's power, she longed for the clean air of her old home. She longed for the familiar touch of the ancient stones. Would she ever feel that freedom again? What's worse, she knew her inner self was slowly fading, feeling like a flower pressed too tightly in a book. Despite that, Tala found small joys. Sometimes an older she-wolf, Alara, would sneak her a cup of warm berry tea. The old wolf's eyes held a kindness that spoke volumes. It was a small rebellion. It was a tiny spark of hope. Tala would hold the warm mug, feeling the silent warmth of friendship. And then, she would hum, her song weaving a quiet strength into the very air of her cage. She knew she couldn't stay like this forever. Something had to give.
The scent of moonflowers and lightning was a phantom that haunted Ryker. It lingered in the corners of his den. It clung to his favorite chair. He'd stalk into a room, catch the faint sweetness, and his inner wolf would howl a silent aching protest that tore at his gut. He hated it. He cursed the weakness it brought, because it made him feel less in control. He found himself lingering near Tala's den, catching glimpses of her. He watched her quiet movements, her hum. It was infuriating. His temper grew shorter. His orders were sharper. He snapped at his beta Round because a stray wolf pup barked too loudly during training. Round looked at him with confusion, then concern. But Ryker ignored him. He couldn't explain the war raging inside him. He was supposed to be strong. He was supposed to be unshakable. Yet Tala, with her quiet ways and her strange scent, was chipping away at his carefully built walls. He didn't know what scared him more, the unpredictable power she held, or this unbearable yearning for her presence. One gray morning a loud crack echoed through the great hall. A heavy wooden beam, weakened by time, began to splinter above where Tala was quietly arranging winter herbs. Without warning, Ryker moved. His body surged forward on instinct. He shielded her, his large frame covering her smaller one because protecting his pack was his first duty. A fierce snarl ripped from his throat, directed at the falling timber, a sound disproportionately fierce for just a beam. His raw protectiveness flared. Moments later he froze. He saw the shock in Tala's wide eyes. He recoiled. He hated that he had acted without thinking. "Be more careful, Luna," he growled, his voice colder than the winter air. "You are a distraction." He turned away, his heart pounding, because he needed to reinforce his walls. He heard her soft sigh. He smelled her sadness. Deep down he knew the truth. His alpha command battled his mate's pull. He cursed his wolf, cursed the bond, cursed everything that made him feel so wildly out of control. The frost wolves. Their attacks were getting bolder. They were no longer just skirmishes on the borders. They were raids. Deeper, more frequent. Ryker felt the grim truth like a stone in his stomach. The smell of fear, now mixed with the acrid scent of burned wood and spilled blood, hung over the pack. He pushed his warriors harder, because he felt the mounting pressure. He saw the exhaustion etched on their faces, the doubt flickering in their eyes. He told them to train longer. He told them to fight harder. "Alpha, the patrols are stretched too thin," Rowan, his beta, reported one evening, his voice strained. "Our hunters are barely bringing in enough game, because they spend too much time on watch." Ryker slammed his fist on the table. "Then they will hunt faster, and they will watch longer." "Do you question my commands, Rowan?" His voice was a low growl. He saw Rowan flinch. But then Ryker saw the quiet strength in the beta's eyes. Maybe Rowan was right, but Ryker couldn't admit it. He couldn't show weakness. Not only that, the air grew colder. The winds carried a deeper chill. The land itself felt uneasy, as if the forest held its breath. Ryker would stand on the highest bluff, scanning the horizon, his wolf restless beneath his skin. He felt the frost wolf alpha's presence, a dark, heavy shadow that seemed to follow him. He knew what Anya had said about the great unraveling. Was this it? Was this the doom she foresaw? And could his iron rule truly stop it? He felt the weight of his crown, heavy and cold. As a result, Ryker found himself haunted by Anya's words, claimed in fear, silenced in pride. He'd silenced Tala, yes. He'd claimed her in fear. Was he the cause? Was he the one leading them to ruin? A chilling thought. He pushed it away. He had to believe in his strength. He had to believe in his control. He didn't know what else to believe in. The distant howls of the frost wolves grew louder that night, a dark promise cutting through the silence. "Sleep on your back. My name is Marcus, and my voice is really deep. What do you think?" Frost wolf attacks hammered them without mercy. These weren't just skirmishes anymore, they were brutal, planned assaults because the enemy was getting bolder. Ryker pushed his warriors past their breaking point. Their eyes held a haunted look. Their bodies moved slower. He started to hear the whispers, low and uneasy. "He's losing his grip. Our alpha is too rigid." He felt their doubt like sharp little stones hitting his skin. He paced his war room. Maps spread before him, lines of defense, attack routes, but nothing seemed to work. He tried new formations and new tactics, yet every plan met with unexpected complications. What's worse, the pack's morale felt like a fraying rope, stretching thinner with each passing day. Rowan, his beta, often looked at him with a silent plea. But Ryker couldn't show weakness. He had to be the rock. He had to be the iron wall because that's all he knew. Meanwhile, Tela stayed in her den, mostly quiet. He saw the elder Omegas and even some of the young ones seek her out. Just for a moment, they'd emerge calmer, a soft light in their eyes. It infuriated him. He couldn't control that. He couldn't command that quiet power. It was wild and unpredictable. And that's what he feared most. He cursed the useless songs. He cursed the strange calm she brought. He swore to himself that it was a trick. As a result, his usual clarity in battle was clouded. He felt a deep ache in his chest, a mix of exhaustion and rising terror. The prophecy. Anya's words, they echoed in his mind, claimed in fear, silenced in pride. Was he truly leading them to ruin? Was his fierce control actually tearing them apart? He didn't know what scared him more, the approaching frost wolves, or the dawning realization that he might be the problem. The pack needed answers, and he had none. The battle lines had finally quieted for a few hours. Ryker, utterly exhausted, found himself drawn to the edge of the territory. This was where Tala often came. He saw her now sitting on a sun-warmed stone, humming a soft, wordless tune. The air around her felt different. It was calm. It was peaceful. It was like a soft blanket in the biting wind. He watched. He listened. And then he saw it. A small injured wolf pup whimpering nearby slowly limped closer to her. Tala didn't move. She just hummed. The pup, whimpering less now, lay down beside her, its head resting on her lap. It trusted her. It felt her calm. This was a power he couldn't grasp. Not with strength. Not with commands. It was something else entirely. Maybe it was fate. But a cold wave of realization washed over Ryker. He remembered Anya's prophecy again. Embraced in understanding, resonated with respect. He had chosen fear. He had chosen pride. He had silenced her. What followed was a searing moment of dawning realization and agonizing self-doubt. He had been so wrong. He saw his own harshness, his contempt. He felt a sick lurch in his stomach as he remembered the midwinter feast. His cruel words, how she had carried herself with such quiet dignity despite his public humiliation. Every dismissal, every cold glare. It all came rushing back, because he had been so blind, so utterly, terribly blind. His unique scent, moonflowers and lightning, had haunted him, a phantom touch that made his wolf howl. He had cursed it as weakness. Now he felt it as a profound ache, a deep, aching longing. He wanted her. He truly wanted her, and that terrified him more than any unraveling. He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. The game had changed. The stakes were no longer just about survival. They were about redemption. And his soul felt heavy with a regret that burned hotter than any ember. The frost wolf alpha's howl cut through the night. Closer now. It was a chilling sound, like ice scraping over stone. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a challenge to his pack. It held a note of dark recognition. And then Ryker felt it. A strange, sharp pull from the bond. A warning. This howl was meant for Tala. The frost wolf alpha was targeting her. The whisper. He felt a primal terror grip his heart. Not for his pack's safety, not just for the battle, but for her. He didn't understand why, but the bond, which he had fought and denied for so long, pulsed with an urgency he couldn't ignore. He rushed to Tala's den, the sudden urgency like a physical shove. The air thickened. He burst inside. She looked up, her eyes wide, sensing the same strange connection to the enemy's howl. She didn't know what scared her more, the sound outside, or the raw fear she now saw in his eyes. The frost wolf alpha. It's coming for you. He rasped, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. He saw her flinch. He saw the confusion. He had treated her like a weakness. He had dismissed her. Yet now she was the key. She was the target, and he felt a sudden, fierce need to protect her. Because the thought of losing her, losing his mate, was a cold, sharp blade to his soul. This was an unexpected twist. What's worse, the rest of the pack didn't know. They thought the Frostwolf Alpha was coming for him, for them. They didn't know the truth. That their Luna, the one he had shamed, was the true prize. Ryker felt the weight of this secret, a crushing burden. He had to prepare, he had to protect her, and he had to do it without revealing the terrifying truth to his pack. The forest held its breath, the silence roared, and Ryker knew with chilling certainty that the battle that was coming would not be fought on his terms. The ground trembled, a deep guttural howl, not just one but many, crashed over the Blackwood territory. The Frostwolves, they were here. Their eyes, like frozen pits of dark fire, burned in the twilight. Ryker roared, "Defend the borders. Protect the women and pups." His voice was rough, raw, because a primal dread clawed at his throat. He plunged into the chaos, his own teeth bared, his claws tearing. But then there were too many, too fast. His pack fought bravely. He saw Lyra, a blur of motion, her snarl as fierce as any male. He saw Roan, loyal and strong, but even his beta looked overwhelmed. What's worse, the Frostwolves were like a tide of shadows washing over their defenses. They were relentless. Ryker fought with desperate fury, his body aching, his muscles screaming. Yet his usual clarity in battle was missing. He kept seeing Taylor's wide, confused eyes from last night. He kept hearing Anya's warning. Was this the unraveling he had feared so much? Truth be told, his mind felt split. One part was fighting. One part was agonizing over his mistakes. He felt the weight of his arrogant choices, heavy like a stone in his chest. Because he had focused on control, he hadn't fully embraced what truly mattered. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles, blood, and the sharp metallic tang of fear. The sounds of snapping jaws and desperate howls filled the air. As a result, his pack faltered. They were losing ground, he could feel it. The frost wolves were stronger, they were faster, and they had a hunger he hadn't seen before. He caught Rowan's eye across the fray. The beta looked exhausted, almost defeated. Ryker knew. He had to do something, he had to find a way. But how? In that moment a chilling howl, distinct from the others, cut through the din. It was the frost wolf alpha, and it was heading straight for Tala's den. Tala. The name was ripped from Ryker's soul, a sound of pure primal terror. The frost wolf alpha, a monstrous form, its eyes like frozen pits, had broken through their lines. It was not coming for him. It was coming for Tala. Its howl was one of dark recognition, a hungry, ancient sound that targeted her. Before he could move, its claws tore into her shoulder. For one horrifying instant, as the claws ripped Tala's flesh, Ryker felt it, a searing agony that exploded through their bond. It was a phantom fire burning hotter than any real wound. The pain nearly buckled him. His wolf inside lost its mind. A roar incandescent with rage tore through his thoughts. It was a fury he'd never known, an absolute savage need to protect his mate. No matter how hard he'd fought the bond, it now surged. Pain. Ryker's agonized roar. Elder Lyra's forgotten words. Your song must answer. It all ignited Tala. She rose, blood stained the snow around her, and then she roared. It wasn't a scream. It was sound. It was light. It was color. It was pressure. The air fractured into a kaleidoscope of impossible hues, shimmering like shattered ice. The scent of ozone and ancient forests, wild and untamed, grew thick around them. The ground bucked beneath his feet. A sliver of her energy, her very essence, instinctively lashed out. It was a desperate lifeline. It connected with Ryker's wolf. He felt it clear as day, as a surge of agonizing, beautiful power. His own alpha aura flared in response, supercharging his nearby warriors. Just like that, the frost wolves didn't just dissolve. They were unmade. Their forms unraveled into shrieking mist and flashes of dying starlight. As the last one vanished, intricate silver glyphs, like ancient script, flared across Tala's skin. They glowed with an ethereal light before slowly fading. She collapsed, utterly spent, the river stone falling from her hand. Ryker was beside her. He fell to his knees, shaking, his body trembling from the echoed pain and the shock of what he had just seen. He saw Tala drained, her skin pale, the silver marks fading. He saw the prophecy, undeniable. He had been so wrong, so arrogant, so tragically blind. His internal walls, built so high with fear and pride, crumbled around him. He was raw, exposed, and deeply, utterly ashamed. The silence that followed Tala's roar was profound. It was broken only by his ragged breathing. He reached for her, his hand hovering, unsure if he even had the right to touch her. He saw the river stone, dark and smooth, lying beside her limp fingers. He picked it up. It felt impossibly heavy. Every cruel word, every cold dismissal, every forced touch, they replayed in his mind. A relentless, punishing echo. He remembered the midwinter feast, the shame he'd put on her. He had almost destroyed his salvation. He wanted to howl himself. Not with rage, but with a grief so deep it threatened to consume him. His wolf lay quiet now, spent, but a deep, unyielding ache pulsed in its core. It was the ache of a bond bruised, a mate hurt, a connection nearly severed because of his foolish pride. He felt a profound sense of despair. What had he done? How could he ever make this right? Tala stirred faintly, a soft whimper escaping her lips. He saw her pain. He smelled her exhaustion, and he knew, with chilling certainty, that he was the cause. He had failed her. As alpha, as mate, he had failed his pack. What's worse, he had nearly led them to ruin because of his own stubborn heart. His vision blurred. He felt the weight of her suffering, and the profound truth of his own monstrous mistake settled over him, crushing him. His future, his life, his very soul felt shattered. The silence was deafening. It pressed down on Ryker heavier than any physical blow. His limbs ached. His body trembled. Tala lay limp, utterly spent on the snow. He saw her. He saw the prophecy made real. He saw his colossal mistake. What's worse, the entire pack stood watching. Their faces were a blur of shock. Their eyes were on him. He had to do something. He had to make it right. But how? A slow, agonizing certainty settled in his bones. There was only one way, one truth left. Before he could move, he sank to the ground. Not just knelt. He sank, every ounce of his pride crumbling away. He was like a broken monument. His head bowed low, and then, slowly, deliberately, he bared his throat to Tala. It was the ultimate act, the deepest surrender, offering his life, his leadership, to her judgment. His breath hitched. He waited. Every heartbeat felt like a drum in the stillness. He smelled the lingering ozone from Tala's power, mixed with the sharp scent of his own shame. He knew this was it. This was his lowest point, but it was also his only way back. He heard faint murmurs from the pack, a ripple of disbelief, an alpha, baring his throat. To his Luna, the one he had tried to silence, it was unheard of, and yet it felt right. It felt true, because this was the only path to earning her forgiveness. He felt the cold, hard snow against his bared neck. He waited for her command, for her judgment. His wolf, usually so loud and demanding, was quiet now, humbled because it knew the true weight of his failure. All he could do was offer himself. He could only offer what was left of his shattered pride. He closed his eyes. The forest seemed to watch, and he knew deep down that his fate now lay entirely in her hands. Tala. His voice was a raw wound. It scratched against the quiet air, rough and broken. I was wrong. So wrong. He picked up the dark river stone, its cool smoothness a stark contrast to the burning shame in his chest. Anya warned me. She told me. He swallowed hard. I chose fear. I chose pride. The words were heavy, each one a stone from his heart. He saw Elder Lyra in the distance, her gaze knowing. He remembered her gentle words, all the ones he'd dismissed. I was arrogant. Blind. He wanted to look at Tala, truly look at her, but he couldn't. Not yet. The pain was too great. Your voice, your scent, he choked out, the words catching in his throat. Moonflowers and lightning. It drove me mad from the first moment. I wanted you, and that terrified me more than any unraveling. His voice cracked, a sound utterly devoid of his usual alpha command. It was the sound of a man broken. He recounted his cruelties. The midwinter feast. The way he'd compared her gentle song to the sharp strengths of Lyra and Ayala. I shamed you in front of them all. I tried to silence you. His voice broke again. Tears, hot and unwanted, pricking his eyes. He hated this weakness, but he couldn't stop. Because the truth had to be spoken. The depth of his mistake had to be laid bare. He felt her faint, exhausted breath. I failed you, he rasped, his voice ringing with a sacred oath. A desperate plea. As alpha, as mate. Forgive me, if you can. My life, my pack, it is yours to command. He vowed to spend his life honoring her, protecting her, cherishing the bond he had almost irrevocably destroyed. He finished, breathless, the silence roaring around them once more. He looked up, finally, his gaze meeting hers. A beat later, his world tilted. Tala looked at him, her eyes still holding a hint of deep sadness, but something else too. Something Ryker couldn't quite name. She was supported by Alara and Alyra, the warrior who now watched with a newfound respect. The air hung thick with anticipation. The pack waited. Every eye was on Tala. What would she do? Would she scorn him? Would she dismiss him as he had dismissed her? Rise, Ryker, she said. Her voice was weak, but it was firm. It was clear. It was a command. A shiver ran through him. A bond broken needs mending, not forfeiture. Her words were like a healing balm. We lead together or not at all. Just like that, his future, his hope, bloomed in his chest. She didn't just forgive him. She offered a new path, a shared path. His wolf, stirring deeply within him, rumbled in a low, happy purr. He stood, slowly, deliberately. His eyes never left hers. He felt the faint pulse of their bond, bruised but still there, still holding on. He had almost let it break. He had almost thrown away the most precious gift he could ever receive, because he was too afraid to understand it. The pack murmured, a collective sigh of relief, of awe. A new kind of quiet respect settled over them. They had witnessed his fall. Now they witnessed her grace. As a result, the silence stretched. But it wasn't empty. It was full of new promises. full of fragile hope. Ryker felt the strength flowing from Tala, not as a threat, but as an offering. It was a true offer of partnership. The weight of his crown still rested on his head, but it felt different now, lighter, because it was no longer his burden alone. The path ahead was long. It was full of challenges, but now they would face it together.
The days after the battle were strange. Ryker was different. He was quieter, gentler. His scent, once a suffocating weight, now smelled like forest earth and embers. A grounding comfort. My power, though, it was wild. It was unstable. It flared with my emotions. When I was angry, small tremors would shake the den walls. If I felt sad, the dim light seemed could even dimmer, and then he would be there. He didn't shy away. He didn't look at me with fear. Not anymore. Instead, he would place a large, warm hand on my arm. His touch was firm. It was steady. And his scent, that calming earth and embers, would wrap around me like a warm blanket. My tremors would lessen. The light would brighten. He was my anchor. He was my calm. This was new. This was scary. But it felt right. Because he was showing me, not just telling me, that he was truly changed. We found that my dark river stone helped. When both our hands held it, a soft hum would pass between us. It grounded me. It settled the wild energy. What followed were nights spent talking. We sat by the fire, just speaking. He told me about his past, about losing his family, about the fear that had driven him to control everything, even me. His voice was raw. It was filled with so much pain, and I listened. I shared my own fears, about my unique voice, about feeling different my whole life. The air grew thick with unspoken longing. Truth be told, our shared dreams were even more vivid. We'd find ourselves in ancient forests bathed in starlight, or sometimes we'd replay his apology, my forgiveness. Each dream felt like a thread knitting us together, piece by careful piece. Because trust wasn't built in a day. It was built in quiet moments, in shared vulnerabilities, and in his steady, patient tendance. My heart, once a bruised thing, slowly began to heal. And just like that, everything changed.
A new scent drifted on the wind. It was strong. It was intriguing. Mountain air and old magic. Alpha Kellen of the Mistwood Pack. He arrived with a small group of warriors, his charisma like a bright flame. He was known for honoring voice wielders. Ryker watched him, a knot of dread tightening in his gut. Kellen had seen Tala's power from afar, and he treated her with an open admiration that Ryker had denied her for so long. Lunar Tala, Kellen's voice was smooth, respectful. Your power is a legend. Your voice a gift. He spoke of ancient prophecies. How her voice could reshape the world. He offered understanding. He offered knowledge of her gift. Everything Ryker had initially refused her, and that's what burned most. Kellen subtly suggested Ryker was unworthy. He hinted that Tala would be truly valued in his pack. Ryker stood back, his heart in his eyes. He didn't command Tala, he didn't speak for her. He felt a quiet torment. It wasn't about dominance. It was genuine fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of losing the fragile trust they had built. He watched their interactions, his protective aura, a warm, silent shield around her. He wanted to snarl. He wanted to chase Kellen away. But he couldn't, because he had to give Tala the space to choose. He had to prove his change not just with words but with actions. He brought her warm tea. He listened when she spoke. He offered his presence, unwavering. Not only that, he saw the flicker of curiosity in Tala's eyes when Kellen spoke of old magic. He saw the temptation of a world that understood her. What's worse, he deserved it. He had caused her so much pain. He was acutely aware of his past mistakes. He knew he had to let her decide. He had to let her choose him. His wolf, usually so loud, was silent in its anxiety. A deep ache in his chest. Could their mended bond withstand this new test? He waited. He watched. And he prayed.
The gathering was tense. Alpha Kellen stood tall, his scent of mountain air and old magic filling the space. He smiled at Tala, a confident, charming smile, and then he made his formal offer. Luna, Tala, he said, his voice carrying far. Join my pack. Be my honored Luna. Here, your voice will truly be revered. Your power, understood. A murmur rippled through the Blackwood Pack. They looked at me. They looked at Ryker. Ryker was silent. His face showed no command, only a quiet intensity. He let me choose. He gave me space. My heart ached for him. because I could feel his fear. His silent plea, Kalen's words, were tempting. His understanding felt like a balm to old wounds. But then, I looked at Ryker. I saw the profound change in his eyes. I felt the deep, thrumming chord of our bond. It was mending, it was true, it was real, and it was mine. Before Ryker could even speak, I stepped forward. My voice was soft, but it resonated with undeniable power. Alpha Kalen, I said, my gaze steady. I thank you for your understanding. I paused. But my path, my pack, and my mate are here. A collective gasp went through the crowd. I turned to Ryker. My eyes found his. They shone with a love that had fought through so much pain. My heart is here. I took Ryker's hand. His skin was warm. His touch sent a jolt of pure love and reassurance through me. He squeezed my hand, his relief a palpable wave that flowed into me through our bond. Keelan, seeing the unbreakable connection, bowed gracefully. I understand, he said. And then he departed. What followed was a wave of cheers from our pack, a roar of approval. The Luna's resonance began that night. As my voice opened gatherings, a silent, intimate exchange flowed between us. A shared breath, a touch of hands, a faint golden shimmer of power. We were a resonant whole now. The seasons turned. The scars of the Frostwolf attack slowly healed, not just on the land, but in the hearts of the Blackwood pack. And then, a new ritual began. It was called the Luna's Resonance. It wasn't about strength from brute force. It was about something deeper, something more powerful. As Tala's voice, now strong and clear, opened pack gatherings, something magical happened. A silent, intimate exchange flowed between her and Ryker, a shared breath, a touch of hands, a faint golden shimmer of power, visible only to their bonded senses, would weave through the air. This shimmer wasn't just pretty light. It was their combined strength. It was their love. It was their trust, made real. They led, not as alpha and a once broken mate, but as a resonant whole. Ryker, once so rigid, now consulted Tala on every decision. He listened. He valued her soft wisdom because he learned that true strength wasn't about controlling everything. It was about understanding. It was about respect. His transformation was complete. He had embraced the whisper. He had found salvation in her song. Not only that, the pack felt it. They thrived under this new, balanced leadership. They felt the calm. They felt the harmony. It was a stark contrast to the fear that had once gripped them. They saw their alpha, once a figure of cold command, now stand beside his Luna, his gaze full of deep love and pride. What followed was a new kind of peace for the Blackwood pack, a peace built on shared power. They learned from their leaders that even the biggest mistakes could be fixed with honesty and love. The forest itself seemed to hum with their new harmony. The scent of moonflowers and lightning now mingled perfectly with forest earth and embers, creating a new, unique fragrance for their territory. It was the scent of their love. It was the scent of their new beginning. This was their ongoing climax. This was the powerful resolution of the core conflict. Their unified leadership was the ultimate victory against the shadows that threatened their world. After the great battle, the immediate consequences were clear. The Frostwolves had vanished. The great unraveling was held at bay, but the pack needed healing. And then, Ryker, guided by Tala's intuitive understanding, started to do things differently. He no longer snarled at rival packs. Instead, he sought diplomacy. He would meet them, his posture open, his voice calm. Tala would sit beside him, her presence a silent assurance. Because of that, old grudges began to soften. New friendships started to bloom between packs. Tala, now free to use her gifts, spent her days among the pack. Her gentle hums would guide healing sessions for the elderly. They would comfort the young pups. And then, Ryker would often join her. His large hand would rest gently on a trembling shoulder. His touch, once cold, now offered immense comfort. He would learn from her. He would learn how to truly nurture his pack, not just command them. This was a side of their alpha they had never seen before. It was beautiful. It was profound. More importantly, the pack council changed. It became more inclusive. Elder Alara, with her old lore and quiet wisdom, sat beside Ryker and Tala. Lyra the warrior, once so focused on strength, now spoke of balance. And then, they would make decisions together, listening to every voice, not just the loudest, because every voice mattered. Every wolf had a part to play in their new harmony. This was the strength of their combined leadership. As a result, the Blackwood Pack became a beacon, a place where true understanding blossomed. The tension that had once filled the air lifted, replaced by laughter, by songs, by the comforting scent of a thriving, united pack. They were building a legacy, a testament to a love that had battled fear and pride and won. Their journey was a story whispered around campfires, teaching every pup the true meaning of belonging. Years passed. The forest surrounding Blackwood territory flourished, thick and vibrant. And then new sounds echoed through the trees. The joyful yips and playful growls of young pups. Ryker and Tala, now parents, watched their own child, a little she-wolf with bright, curious eyes, chasing butterflies. Her laughter was like sunlight, echoing the harmony they had forged. The scent of moonflowers and lightning mingled perfectly with forest earth and embers on the wind. It created a new, unique scent, the very essence of their loving union. The shadow of the great unraveling, once a constant threat, was now held at bay, not by force, not by rigid control, but by the resonance of respect, by the power of understanding, and by the unbreakable bond of their love. Ryker, once so desperate for control, now moved with a quiet confidence that came from shared strength. Tala, once silenced, sang with a power that flowed freely, nurturing all around her. Their story became a legend. The shadow of the great unraveling, once a constant threat, was now held at bay, not by force, not by rigid control, but by the resonance of respect, by the power of understanding, and by the unbreakable bond of their love. Ryker, once so desperate for control, now moved with a quiet confidence that came from shared strength. Tala, once silenced, sang with a power that flowed freely, nurturing all around her. Their story became a legend. Truth be told, their nights were filled with the rediscovery of each other. The ache of past hurts was soothed by the profound comfort of their renewed bond. The air in their den was electric with intimacy, filled with the promise of full healing and deepening connection. Their shared dreams were now dreams of a peaceful future, a future they built together, because they learned that love wasn't about dominating, it was about trusting. It was about surrendering to the right partner. Popularity isn't going anywhere. And as long as he's relatable, exciting, and emotional, we'll always be there to watch. Right, guys?
Pure and insincere. Epilogue. The fire crackled, its warm glow dancing on the faces of the young pups gathered around Elder Alara. The scent of wood smoke and contented wolves filled the air. Years had turned into decades since the great battle, since the true meaning of the whisper had been understood. The pups, their eyes wide and curious, listened intently as Alara, her voice soft like rustling leaves, began the familiar tale. Once, she began, there was an alpha, a powerful alpha named Ryker. He was sore, he was brave, but he was also afraid. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the eager faces. He lost much when he was young, and because of that, he built walls around his heart. He thought control was the only way. The pups shifted, little brows furrowed in thought. They knew Alpha Ryker. He was kind, he was fair. This was a different picture. And then, Alara continued, there was a Luna, a quiet Luna named Tala. Her voice was like a song that held magic. Alara held up a dark, smooth river stone, catching the firelight. It pulsed with a faint internal light, just like the one Tala had always carried. Ryker, in his fear, he silenced her. He pushed her away. A collective gasp went through the pups. He made a mistake. A big mistake. She spoke of the frost wolves, their icy hunger, and the day the whisper truly roared. She spoke of Ryker's broken heart, his confession, his surrender. He learned to listen, Alara whispered, her voice filled with ancient wisdom. He learned that true strength was not in commanding, but in understanding, in respecting. He learned to trust the song, not fear it. The pups looked at the river stone, then at each other. They understood. Because of Alpha Ryker's change, because Luna Tala's song was finally heard, their pack had flourished. Their lands were green. Their hunts were plentiful. The great unraveling remained a distant, chilling whisper, held at bay by a love forged in fire and healed by understanding. The scent of moonflowers and lightning still sometimes carried on the wind, a sweet reminder of their Luna, mingling perfectly with the deep forest earth and burning embers of their Alpha. Alara smiled, her eyes twinkling. And that, little ones, is the story of how our Alpha, once blinded by pride, became the wisest of leaders. and how his Luna's song brought salvation not just to them but to us all.
Thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed what you saw, we've got a whole library of other videos packed with more great content just like this waiting for you on our channel. So why not dive into another one right now? And hey, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on our next upload, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We'd love to have you join our community and see you in the next video. Thanks again.
The tension in the air felt like a tightening rope, pulling Blackwood Pack closer to the edge. Ryker paced his war tent. The scent of fear, raw and metallic, stung his nostrils. Rumors swirled like angry wasps. Frost wolves, they were attacking settlements closer to the border, pushing deeper into their lands than ever before. Not only that, scout reports confirmed it. These were no mere skirmishes. This was war because the frost wolves were known harbingers of the great unraveling. What followed was a ruthless focus. Ryker pushed his warriors relentlessly, his commands sharper, his patience thinner. He trained them until their muscles screamed, until their lungs burned. He had to be strong, because weakness would lead to annihilation. We will meet them head on, he roared during a council meeting, his voice echoing off the stone walls. No retreat. No surrender. He saw the flicker of doubt in some eyes, the quiet murmurs of weary fighters, but he ignored them. He had to. Instead, he dismissed suggestions of diplomatic overtures. They understand only strength. He growled, his hand instinctively going to the hilt of his battle knife. Negotiation is a luxury we cannot afford. We will crush them. His fear of the unpredictable, his conviction that total control was the only answer, fueled his every decision. This rigid belief was both his greatest strength and his most dangerous flaw. Because of that, he couldn't see other paths, other solutions. By the time the full moon began its ascent, casting eerie silver shadows across the territory, Ryker felt a grim certainty. The Frostwolf Alpha's chilling howl pierced the night. A direct challenge, and then his own wolf, restless and potent, answered deep within him, a primal echo to the distant call. The ground seemed to hum with anticipation, a low, unsettling vibration that resonated with a distant, terrifying power, a power he didn't understand, but that he knew he would soon face. He felt it clear as day. Something massive was about to collide with his world.